And so tonight is one of we're going to at least do another one on Sunday after church, similar today, be similar content, but everything's a bit uniquely different when you do it different times. But this one's going to be recorded as well, and Sunday will be recorded as well. And for those that can't make these, we will create access to the recording so that they can watch, if that's good. So if you're watching online, welcome. We're sorry we didn't have you with us, but it's good to have you with us now. Good. Everyone give them a wave. Very good. And we're always conscious there's more audience than the audience in front of you. And so our discussions are a roundup of the church family meetings that we had and the SWOT exercise that we went through. SWOT as in strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so this is really the beginning phase of the maturity of this. So it doesn't stop and start with this part. Things come from this. And then obviously throughout this process and towards the back end of it as well, it's just continue to clarify the vision and the forward way for the church. And so thanks so much for everyone who's been involved so far and given us contribution through this SWOT analysis. It's been very good. We've gone over it, and obviously we're a little bit late on our timelines. But I'd imagine if you had timelines before COVID, you're probably a bit late on some of them as well. Everything changed up, didn't it, dramatically? And so thank you for your patience and your prayers through this. And we've managed to go through it all. The eldership every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we meet, and we meet for, we've done that for a long time. Dave and Kevin, Sue, myself and Catherine have been doing that for, and Howard have been doing that for quite a while every week, where we're just praying things, committing things to the Lord, and just trusting Him for all that He's entrusted us with, and praying over our people, your families, and everything that arises as well. And so we've gone through and all the feedback. This big document here. All the feedback, long lists. And so we've paired it and narrowed it back. And tonight are the common themes that have emerged through this exercise. And so obviously when people make a comment, it's not to say it's invalid. What we've tried to garnish are the common themes that have coming through. And I must say at the start, we want to encourage feedback in this as well. And so you can do that really simply by just putting a comment in the chat. I'll open mine so I'll see them as they come in. And so as we go through it, you may have a question or a comment. Feel free to put it in the chat. And I'll refer that as we're going along. And perhaps you might want to ask a question that you may not want everyone else to see. Then you can just push it straight to me, and I can surface that as an anonymous question that's arisen. All you've got to do is hop onto my icon, or on the chat room, and it says down the bottom, everyone. You just put the arrow down, and then it comes up with everyone on there, and then you can just direct it straight to me. Okay, and that'll be an anonymous chat, and I won't refer to the name. If that makes it easier, we want to encourage feedback. We want to encourage conversation. And it's interesting, we call these church family meetings.
Chat. It's just down the bottom, see?
We call these church family meetings, and really what we're about is trying to have church family conversations as we would in our own home. I don't know that if you've had any difficult conversations lately. I've just had 2 of them in the last hour. Very challenging. Working with other denominations is a challenge. And so we've just had to journey through some stuff that's biting on us for the Lord Mayor's Brekkie on Friday and the presentations that we're doing. But you know what? An honest conversation when we can air things in a civil way where we listen to one another and we try to find common ground, it's a liberating conversation. And so we really want to encourage people to provide feedback and in that, and you can do that in the chat. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go to a PowerPoint presentation. So the view will change a little bit, where we've just tried to collate that. And thank you, Dave. And so just bear with me a little bit on this, so that we can all see this. It may just take me a fraction just to get ready. Okay, now you should have a PowerPoint in front of you. Is that right?
Yep.
All right, very good. Look, I'll just leave it at that. I could narrow it down, but I'm not the best with technology. I've learnt more in technology in the last 3 months than the last 3 years, 30 years probably, but PowerPoint's still beating me. So 2020 SWOT analysis for Life Church, church family meetings. So we're going to start at the strengths. And so you'll find in the left-hand column, strengths, and a word that would be associated with that is build on your strengths, of course. Our strengths are our strengths. And then in the right-hand column on your screen, there's notes and actions. And so a number of all this feedback that came through from everyone in the church family, these were the common themes. And so we won't spend a lot of time on this, only that we should never ignore our strengths, and also acknowledge that we do have some great strengths. And so these is just a statement that we agree with, our common themes that came through it. It's interesting, different churches have different models and approaches. And on the second line on the right-hand column, so I'll just read through them: love for God and others, heart for marginalised, non-judgmental, Christ-centred messages, generous, word and deed ministry, humble leadership, praying church, servant heart, community-focused. Then on the right side, we agree with this, and this is what we all agree with and what surfaced very strongly. But on the second line underneath that, our primary attraction that surfaced for us as a church is that we are a missional, cause-orientated church. That is our attraction. And as we go through the rest of the document, of course, we haven't got everything, but that is the primary focus and attraction. And I mean, there's a little comment there in terms of praying church. There's always opportunities to grow in that, of course. And I think what we saw I don't know, Dave, it might be about probably 8-9 weeks ago now with Kim going into surgery. We just saw a wave of energy of prayer and support come to and over that. And for us, that said that, wow, there's just tremendous opportunity in that for us as a church to continue to grow. So again, actually, I can't see the comments. So let me just bear with me. I just want to try to make sure I can get that comment page up so I can see it, so that I don't miss that as you're making a comment through. Chat, here we go. Okay, none so far. So feel free to make some comments or any questions as we go through this, that's for sure. Okay, and then we go into strengths opportunities. And so you'll see there, a key word under opportunities is, this is a place and a space, weaknesses, weaknesses. Let me, if I can, just premise this by saying, no one likes being told what their weaknesses are.
You're not wrong.
And certainly most of us are aware of what our weaknesses are. We don't want to be reminded of them. We probably remind ourselves of them enough. And so, you know, when we look at that, I mean, I think the beautiful thing of all this is we're just trying to garnish feedback and conversation. And I think it's really important that through this and the honesty of this is we should never take offense and resist some things. Let's just be open and transparent as best we can. And so I was saying to the guys last night, we're on a Zoom, I said, oh gosh, if anyone's going to be offended, I'll be offended, because it's all aimed at me because I'm the leader of the church. But I'm not offended at all. Not offended at all. It's been wonderful feedback. So with our weaknesses, obviously that creates an opportunity. You'll see there in the top left-hand column for us to invest in some of those weaknesses. And then on the right-hand column, there's just some notes and some actions. Okay, so interestingly, through the feedback, and as I said, these were common themes that came through, welcoming wasn't one of our strongest traits, which is interesting compared to some of our, the strengths was non-judgmental and stuff like that. So, you know, in some sense, there's a bit of a contradiction there, but in another sense, we get that and know that. And so the note on this was that we need to build a more welcoming culture in the life of our church. And the reality is we do that. It's not a position, it's not a title. You know, it's part of the family's responsibility that when we have, and I think that's one of the words and phrases that's coming up, family. And if we can begin to think and act like that, then we pull more into the kingdom of God, nature of God. And so if we were to think practically that as you would, if you've got people coming over to your home and they're guests in your home, then you're going to do what you can to make sure that they're at home. And so as that's when I talk about when we've got to build a welcoming culture, all of us have a responsibility in that. And so because they're all coming into a place that's familiar to us, our church family. And so that's one of the things. And so the action from that is that we need to make known what some of the needs are and invite involvement. And I don't know if a number of you would have been pretty well aware that the tail end of some of this process, without a shadow of a doubt, it's a call to action. It's a call of involvement. It's a call of interaction and sowing and using our gifts and our talents. And so that's where we would see welcome would sit. And so there is some actions to go forward that and invite involvement from our people. We need to create teams and we need to change things up from where they've been. Pastoral care was a weakness. My apologies. Oh dear. Pastoral care. And so some feel like they don't belong. So there's a little bit of a double up there in the belonging. And so whilst we need to work on that and caring for one another, so the action is, well, we want to promote people engaging in small groups and encourage connection. The type of church we are and the type of ministry and the type of resource and how we're resourced is, you know, if people have an expectation the pastor's going to visit everyone all the time, and I know none of you do because I've never probably done it. My apologies. But the New Testament church is about the one anothering of each other. And we've heard tremendous testimonies this year around small groups and so on. So that's one of the actions. And of course, we can expand that. Again, one of the weaknesses. Okay, I appreciate that comment. Felt incredibly welcome our first time at Life Church. I appreciate that, Grant. And I think that's many people's stories, but these were some common themes. Young adults and children. And so the note is, well, yep, let's state the obvious. Let's state it how it is. We don't want to shrink back. Primarily, we're an adult congregation. That's primarily what we are. So the action is to welcome engagement with those who are passionate in this area. And I think, and we'll get to it actually, because I did write down a date, and I just don't have that with me, but I've got it on another page because there will be a flow on from this meeting that we will create, and it's going to be on. I'll get that. One of the elders could put that in the comment if you could. I think it's Wednesday, the 24th of June. I think.
That's correct.
Yeah, and we'll put this all out into the next e-news as well. And so, we want to welcome the engagement, and people got passionate about that. And there's a few things that we feel is quite good. There's a couple of little things emerging with a couple of young adults in the church. But it'd be fair to say we've got to focus on our strengths. And at the moment, we're not a full family generational church. Whilst that may be frustrating for some, there's a level of frustration, but there's a level of contentment too. Well, this is who we are. And we never want to overlook who we are. and ignore what we have. But obviously there's some weaknesses there and we need to invest. So in that we're asking, well, who wants to help out with that? Who wants to put their, who's got a feel and a sense of calling and gifting in those areas? Again, another consistent theme is the service music and the worship experience, and the consistency of that. And so obviously we know there's been some inconsistency. It has been for as long as I've been there, just over 5 years now. And so and historically, so it's not a new thing for us, but because it's a common theme and surfacing, probably that was one of the very common ones. I don't have any gradings on it all. But we need to look at investing it. So the action forward on that will be to dialogue with the music team. Obviously, we should be praying about that. I think all these are opportunities for us to be praying into and over. Ask for involvement, and then one of the other conversations that we had, we're going to converse with some other churches. We've got plenty of churches we're friends with, and so my interpretation of the kingdom of God has never been limited to 4 walls. We are part of something bigger. We are part of someone else. And whilst this is an expression of the family, we're part of an extended family that's all the family of God. And so there's some thoughts and conversations on that. Thank you. 24th of June in the comments. You are always welcome, Russell. Thanks, mate. Good on you. Okay, identifying gifts was another common theme. And so the action forward, and some of this is... there's a little bit of repeat in some of this, and you'll find a bit more repeat in the opportunities. Sometimes our weaknesses and opportunities, they cross over. And so some of the opportunities we're talking through right now, and you'll see a little bit of double up. And so what we're asking, if anyone's got any gifts and desire and time that they want to, we want to hear from you. We don't want anyone to be frustrated for lack of a perception or a perceived lack of opportunity to exercise gifts and talents. We don't want anyone to be living in that level of frustration. So we're inviting people to come to us and come forward and put their hand up and enter into a conversation and dialogue. So, well, how are we going to, what are the possibilities and what can we do? Another common theme that came through was communication. And I just put a couple of notes there in regards to a few things that came through more than once. Was transparency of finances, decision making, the distance between soul and life, and people moving on. And so, here's that date here. Thank you, guys. The action, and I missed highlighting that in red. What we're saying as a result of this, and we had this a while ago, and we've never really dropped anything intentionally. We just have dropped things. But we will be looking at doing at least 2 to 3 church family information gatherings every year. The first one will be on the 24th of June coming up. And that's where we will be as transparent as we can with anything and everything. That will be an opportunity for people to ask the difficult questions if they want to. But there's nothing hidden. Those of you who know not-for-profits and organisations such as our church and charity, all our financials are in public domain. You just need to Google ACNC, it's all there. And so, you know, all those things are out there and in the open. And it may have seemed through our communication or lack of, that some things are, you know, oversight, or it's just a couple of people making all the decisions and so on. And truth be known, probably has been in some cases too. But we're happy to dialogue and journey through that. Absolutely. But we're also mindful that communication's a two-way opportunity. I think it's really important that when we talk about communication, I love what Phil Pringle says, communication turns the lights on for people. And so when there's a lack of communication, we're acknowledging that, not intentionally, but we are acknowledging that that's a common theme. And yes, we want to do everything we can do to correct that. But in communication, when there's a lack of, people can dwell in a place of imagination or thoughts and stuff like. So we want to open that up. Of course, we want to shed light on whatever people want light on, and so in that, the two-way opportunity. Everyone in our church needs to know they have full access to the elders. They have full access to myself. Absolutely. And you can do that any way and every way you want. You can write a letter, you can write an email, you can make a phone call, you can text, whatever it is. If you want, if anyone feels a strong sense or burden and urgency that they need to talk to the full leadership, they're here. They're ready, willing and available. As I said, we meet every Tuesday evening or late afternoon into the evening. And so there's accessibility. So that's what we're saying in the communication as well, is we as a church, of course, we want to try to do as best. We want to do better. We know we've got to do better. And we're saying that we're going to try to do better. And we've got an action on that going forward. But let's open it up. We want to, I'm speaking on behalf of the eldership. We want everyone to feel that everyone's accessible. Yeah. Okay, so admin support was again another theme, and that surfaced, and so there's a great opportunity for someone. We'll make needs known. There's actions. We'll make needs known. There's a great opportunity. If somebody's got some administrative gifts and skills, let it be known, because there is opportunity. And that may help us out as well with some communications. And then another common theme was a lack of parking. And so, of course, we acknowledge that we're an inner city church and in a event central precinct of that city as well. And so obviously there are some challenges, but we do feel that there is some opportunities for us to secure some parking. We don't know where it is within the city that may make it easier for some. But we're pretty sure around some of the buildings, there may be some car parks tucked behind them that we may be able to negotiate somewhere with them. Is that cool? If everyone, I can't see anyone's face, but is everyone happy to, we keep going on? Maybe put a comment in. We keep going. Yep.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. Opportunities. Okay, so again, there's a little bit of double up. And so opportunities, you just want to try to, the key words here is shore up. We want to try to shore up some opportunities. Occasion, and so again, these are common themes. Occasions to build a sense of belonging and pastoral care. And so again, part of the action of that is, and there was a number of ideas that came forward through the SWOT gatherings, the family gatherings, about different thoughts and different ideas. And so we're open to hear from people who are passionate in this area. We've got a couple of leads on that from some of the things. I think one of the guys, I think Dave Shembra, you mentioned something around movies, but there's some other things that were raised about some outdoor stuff. And again, I think we said 2 weeks ago, our first church gathering will be outdoors. And so, yep, we need to salt and pepper through the calendar, some occasions to build a sense of belonging and care as a family. Okay, again, this one's a little bit of a double up as well with the weaknesses, identify giftings and harnessing the skills of the people in the congregation. Again, if anyone's got any gifts, desire and time, we want to hear from you. We know and understand from the feedback that we've received, it may be interpreted that, well, it's not interpreted, it's known through a common thread, there's a lack there for us. And so again, we would say, please let communication flow and let's see what can happen. Again, the next comment down there is young adults and children. And the action there is welcome engagement of those who are passionate in this area. Outreach. This was an interesting one that came up with opportunities, and the common theme coming through with this was really connected around Soul Cafe. And those of you who are with us, what's become really clear through this is not everyone is familiar with what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And so obviously this is part of the process of that. But we don't want to always be, it's interesting, some of the different comments that come through, and I recollect, some was, oh, we hear too much about soul, and then others, well, we don't hear enough about what's happening in soul. What are the opportunities for us there? And so it's one of those things that surfaced up quite clearly. And so we want to be clearly in promoting opportunity through soul and volunteers and guests. And so, you know, we've got about 180 volunteers in a normal world, and there's probably 160 of them aren't with the church. They're not believers. Actually, many of them would be God conscious, and they're certainly very on the journey, and they love being with us. And so there's some tremendous opportunities as well with volunteer guests as well. But, you know, in terms of other outreach, I mean, we'll be part of other outreach initiatives, but this would be the common theme, and the connection to it is through the work that we do. Prayer, again, that was highlighted in the strengths, and as well, and opportunities come from the strengths. Developing leaders within Soul and Life Church. And so a thought that's come up is possibly building a regional leadership group, academy, whatever it is, a stream, a pathway. We have a very unique opportunity, and I've mentioned at the top end that our attraction is that we're missional and cause-based as a church. And it really provides us with a very unique opportunity if we were to create some sort of a internship or an academy where we can take people on a journey through the word and deed and allow that thing to seep through them in some sort of an intensive into the future. So the action is we welcome engagement with those who are passionate in this area of the church. Okay, then we're down to threats. There's a lot of threats, and the key word on this is monitor your threats. Because there is a threat, I mean, I don't know how cold it is where you are, but it felt like it dropped 15 degrees last night. And so the threat would be, I'm going to freeze to death. But I'm not going to freeze it because I'm going to monitor the temperature. I'm going to make sure I'm wearing layers of clothes. I'm going to put blankets around me. And so I'm not going to freeze to death. So a threat sometimes can be very real, but a perception as well. One comment in this on the top left-hand is know your thing. The full line was, so we don't try to do too much and not well. So just know your thing. And it was almost like something just leapt off the page for us all. And that is this process, the whole process of clarifying our vision and making it very clear and being bold and brave and courageous about our thing is knowing our thing. And so it was very insightful that came through one of the comments. As well, of course, hearing from God and not obeying, well, that's a threat for us all, isn't it? Failing to hear God, lack of support of leadership, all these are threats. This one here, Westpac withdrawing support. Look, that's always a potential. We've been living with that for years now. I think twice in the last 3 years it's been extended, and so yep, it's a possibility, it's a threat, and that's why we just got to trust the Lord. We're not concerned about that. We're just thankful for the provision of God. And then this was a reoccurring theme: gossip, slander, negative attitudes, and you know what we would say is just don't be a part of that. Just be a Christian, because all that is anti-Christian, actually. It's anti-biblical to act in those ways. And so if you hear it, confront it. Of course, it would be a threat, but we're the answers to all that as well. And thinking small, that would be terrible. Losing our authenticity, limited finances, and doing what we've always done, again, would be threats for us all. Okay, so I'm just going to flip that back now, and I know I've just spoken quite a bit in the last 25 minutes. I just wanted to share a couple of other thoughts, and then we can just open it up a little bit, just knowing that I've just downloaded a fair bit, and certainly want to open it up for anyone to make some contribution, whether that be comments or questions. Absolutely. There's just been some reoccurring phrases come up and words. that have been coming up through it. Historically, in the history of the church, and the historical documents, and I don't know how far back it is, how it'd be more than 15 years, 20 years back probably. There was a phrase that was coined that we found in our historical documents: hearts towards heaven, hands towards humanity. And so that phrase just keeps resurfacing as well: hearts towards heaven and hands towards humanity.
That used to be on the wall in the foyer down at Denison Street.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a number of other words that have surfaced without us trying to lock anything in. We're just throwing out some words: family, tables, kingdom, city. All these sort of words are just are popping up pretty consistently, and in some of the reflections that we've had, and the comments and feedback that we've had. So with all that said, I know that was a lot, and I felt like I just went through that really fast. Actually, I apologise if it was too quick. It's very difficult when I'm just talking to a screen. I can't see anyone's face, so I apologise. I didn't intentionally try to skim over anything, but certainly that's just some of the reflections on the journey and that we're on, and that we've been on over the last. Well, I think we've just journeyed through that over the last 5 weeks, and just trying to continue it. So, with that said, I haven't got anything else. Certainly, if Kevin or Dave or Howard want to chip in, I may have missed something. I may have missed something. But we are saying, and we'll put it on Sunday and in the e-news, that it's interesting on communications. I don't know. I think we've got about 129 people that have subscribed to our e-news, but at best, only about 49% open it. And so, some of those sort of things is there is some communications going out and stuff, but not everyone accesses that. And so, again, we would just encourage people, if you want to know, if people want to know stuff, if it's not there, we'll make sure it's there and help us in that. So in the next e-news, I think we'll be putting out all the elders' emails and stuff like that, just to help people, because we're conscious that we're not living in a print world, and we just want to make things accessible. Okay. Any thoughts or comments or observations or additions or...
Yeah, just unmute everybody if you can, Rick.
Yeah, I haven't muted them. So I think if everyone could just unmute themselves, I might be able to do that, can I?
Can I speak?
Yes, you can.
One of the things that sometimes is a bit hard for people to understand is how to show some of those examples that were on the right-hand side. So although we've identified the weaknesses and then we've stated some action statements, it might need to be a bit more specific so people will know exactly what that means. So welcoming, what does that actually look like? Yeah. So maybe there needs to be a little bit more feedback from people who've been welcomed and what that might look like. So people, if they want to volunteer, can go, I'd really like to do that because I know what that involves. So yeah, that's an only suggestion.
You've had a fair bit of, Linda, you've had a fair bit of work in I mean, I think you actually helped shape up with the way this happened with the Post-it notes. Is that right, from memory?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we might pull on some of your thoughts and how to word that, because we're thinking about, and someone on the screen might help, we're thinking about putting out a survey type thing. And obviously we just put in a couple of words. There's a little bit more to that. But yeah, we might, if you've got some time or expertise that you wouldn't mind helping us just to word that up well.
And that would be using my gifting, may I say.
All right.
I do have a dog that's helping me. Yeah, I think that it's people just need to see what that looks like on the ground. So if we've identified like that we are a missional church, what does that look like? How can I show that missional experience to others? How can I live that when people are coming in through the church? How do I show that to somebody who's been coming to the church for a long time? You know, like I have to see that. I just need some concrete ideas about what I need to do, me personally, or anyone who's a member of the church. How do we show that?
Yeah, that's
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was in some of the dialogue, actually. Obviously identifying areas, but identifying some good language and common language around that, and how we outwork that. One of the themes through the communication, there was in the welcoming, it was you know, there was things that we need more baristas, we need all these sort of things. So there's a bunch of areas that have surfaced, and then what we do know is what we've done needs to tweak up and change up a little bit, and add it, and that's just more people to do that. So look forward to more input there, Linda.
Yeah, and I mean, just really, really simple things like I'd really like to be able to support the leaders, but you know, like in my head, I'm going, okay, they might need a box of fruit and veg, and you're going, no, we get a lot of that from Soul Cafe. We don't actually need that, but it might be, what do we really need? You know, like I don't know what you guys need either.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Hit the spot the wrong way.
No, that's awesome. That's good. I mean, I was driving home late last night from, what is it, Wednesday? Oh, it must have been Elders, and we stayed on a bit later, Sue and I, from over at the church there, and we were driving home. I've got to get some fuel. I said, would you like anything, Sue? And she said, you know what I like? And I said, oh, strawberry Freddo. And there was none. But you're right. And look, you know what? I mean, obviously, the short answer to some of that is, we just value people's prayers. And you know what? Sometimes just knowing that, just a text or a message, it's just like fuel. But yeah, just things like that. Or someone senses a scripture, you know, just little things like that. Just little things make the big difference.
Yeah.
Good.
No worries, Rick.
Yeah, Dave Shembry texts me every day with 3 scriptures. Some of you probably get that too.
Yeah, there's a few. I think I'm up to about 35, Rick.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. Okay, any other thoughts? That's very good. Specifics on some of the actions, and we did try to just put it into a few words, but yeah, it does need to be fleshed out a lot more on the welcoming as an example. If there's too
How
much,
are you going to measure how well you're doing?
maybe you can think tank that for us and let us know.
Okay. And that's probably why the specifics would be really good, because then you can measure how it's going.
It's interesting. I was with Pete McHugh last year, and Peter McHugh was just a giant in the faith from Stairway Church in Melbourne. I was with him for a couple of days last year, back end of last year, down in Melbourne. And I asked him a question. I asked him a similar question. I said, Peter, what do you measure? And because, you know, when it's in business and you come from that, well, you got the KPIs, you know, there's like, I've got budgets to control, I've got targets to hit and customers to, all that sort of stuff. But church and ministry life, it's a different beast. And sometimes we can divert back to buildings, budgets and bums on seats. And it's just not a really good measuring tool at all. I mean, I'll give an example. We don't have a lot of bums on seats, but we know if the church was to close, a massive expression of the body of Christ would close in the city. And so what you see is not everything that you get. And we always want to be a church that as well empowers people to do their thing, not just be a part of the thing as well. But Pete McHugh's reply to that was, well, Rick, we're just looking for stories. looking for testimonies, looking for, what's God doing in people's lives. And I thought it was a very refreshing response, actually, because I've never heard a Christian leader say that. Did my lights just go out?
Did your green screen just fall down?
No, my light just went off. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been on a fair bit lately.
Love the green screen.
There we go. So just on that, I think it would be good to have some measurings, but
Look, it could be as simple as, if there's an increase in prayer requests, because that means that people are saying, I know the church is going to be looking into that and answering, developing those prayers. It could be an increase in the amount of people who are stepping up to be involved in different types of areas, even if it's welcoming. So, or people volunteering to do, it really isn't about, those things that you said before. It's about measuring engagement of the church body within the church.
Excellent. Yeah, I just wrote that down. And to be honest, we don't get a lot of prayer requests. It's in the email all the time. I know some go direct through to Howard. We don't get a lot, actually. And that would be a very good one to measure, because we want to be prayerful. We want to be leaning into the Lord. We don't want to live with challenges. We want to share those challenges so they can be prayed into and over, so there's solutions. So, yeah, that's awesome, Linda. And we welcome other contribution like that, because that's a brilliant question.
In regards to the prayer one, then, maybe it could just be something, well, I guess not while we're doing Zoom meetings, but a more frequent opportunity to pray for people at the end of the service. If people want prayer personally, then that can also encourage encourage engagement.
Yeah, and I think that we probably need to be a bit more permission giving, that let's just be prayerful. And if we're in a conversation, in a huddle after the service or before the service, let's not wait. Let's not, if we're asked to be asked, if someone asks us to pray for them, let's just do it there and then.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, because, in some sense, you want to push back on some cultures in church and stuff. We're just not like everyone else. And so therefore you can create methods and it becomes repetitive. But I think if we create a prayerful culture, then it just becomes what we do.
Yeah.
Another thing too, Rick. Everyone. If it's mentioned about how, if two or more gather in my name, that he's there with us. That's good, Rick. Every time I've noticed there's more involvement when you've mentioned that in church. We
would always encourage.
Yeah.
We would always encourage 3 people in a prayer huddle.
Yeah.
There's safety in numbers, and there's more accountability. When you release people, obviously things can go awry, and in the end, when they do, it just comes back on the church. It doesn't come back on an individual. It comes back on the church. And so we don't want to be controlling. We want to be releasing, but we want to create safety in the release. Safety for those that are being released, and safety for those that are receiving ministry. And I think there's always comfort. I was with a guy in Southampton in March, very prophetic guy from America. And he says, Rick, I've got a prophetic message. I've got it over here. It's written down. He had it written down. He said, I've got a prophetic word for you. And then he called over another leader. I just want to share it before this leader to be accountable. I just went, my gosh, I've never seen that before in my life. And then he wrote it down, and here it is in writing. And so I think there's some healthy things that we can, we all can contribute into, and there's always just safety in numbers. And that's part of it. It's not just for the person on the end, it's the person giving. because we all hear things, interpret things differently. Very good. I think, oh, it's being recorded. I hope some other people are taking some notes. I did write that down. What are we measuring in terms of prayer requests? And we certainly, if people have other got input, just message us and put that in.
I just got a question about the consistency of work.
Yep.
How we would be reaching out to other churches. How do you see that happening? Should we in the worship team be going to other churches now to start fishing around to provide support to our service? Is that how you see it happening, or?
I don't know. We haven't entered into a conversation. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I think we just, I think it's and we've had a chat about this, Grant. I think what we've been missing for a long time is somebody with an anointing and a leadership mantle for worship, to gather people and pull them up in that. And so we can keep praying for that, and we should be praying and believing for that to come about. But sometimes the answered prayers on the end of a conversation as well. And so perhaps there's a few people and friends, church friends that we know, pastors, that we might be able to have a conversation. Well, what would it look like to be serving one another?
Yeah.
For a period of time to build capacities.
Do you see that as coming in and just running a particular service, or do you see that as coming in to facilitate training and leading us up to do it better or better?
I think from memory on the first part of that action was to dialogue with the team first so it's a good conversation. I mean, there's the simple way is to bring somebody in or do something they're going to create something, but we don't really want, we want a capacity building.
Yeah.
We don't want to just meet a need for the next service.
Yeah, because you can only bring on people for so long for that. Yeah.
But I think if somebody feels a calling to build the capacity within those that are around and stuff like that, then it's probably where the conversation might go. I would think. I don't want to just fill rosters. I don't think we're talking about just filling rosters.
I think it could just be like part of that communication thing too. Is just letting the church know that there is a desire for that or a need for that. Because I know for me sometimes, if I just assume that, well, they must have everyone they want. It's fine. They're not asking for people, so they must be fine, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, no, good point. And that was in one of the parts of the action to ask and make known the need. So don't assume. You know what the definition of assume is?
Yeah. Yes.
Does anyone else want to comment on that? It was a common theme on the worship side of things. We're very thankful for the great sacrifice of everyone who's been a part of it, and absolutely, we're very thankful.
Yeah, so hi. Sorry, I'm no longer eating my food now. But yeah, I just want to speak into, although it is a big although it has been a big talking point in the SWOT analysis, but I think with pre-COVID to now, we've come a long way as a worship team. Grant, Greg, myself, Nev, and so many others within the team have invested quite a lot of work in this isolation period that could potentially go unnoticed, and I don't want that to happen. So I think as well.
Just let me speak into that. That's a good point. Pre-COVID, we there was a proposal put to us about upgrading some of our equipment to make things easier and increase our capacity. So that came to the eldership, and we signed off on that, and all that's been bought and purchased and installed. Is that right?
Yeah, about 90%, 95% of that has been installed and purchased.
So just on that was all about building the capacity of what we have in more of a not a specialist world, but a world for people that there's not all these knobs on all the desks and so on. It's a digital thing. It didn't cost much. Just if anyone's concerned, I think we spent about 5 or 10 grand, and we could have got a few grand for the other sound system, but we gave it away to somebody who had a need. We just want to keep being a blessing. So Grant and Thomas and Nev, Greg, all those guys contribute into that. Yeah.
So I think the future for our worship team is quite bright for what's been happening, and so over the next coming of the conversation has already started with what does the worship team look like in the near future. But I think there's been, I'm just going to say this real quick, there's been a bit of angst between the team, but I think it's a two-way street. As Rick said before about communication, it's a two-way street. And so there's been things that have occurred that have been perceived incorrectly. And so going forward, I feel it's my need to make sure that as a part of the worship team that we clarify them things and move forward as a team, not as or not with personal agendas and stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. Yep.
No, there's always a lot of work to be done, and it always rides off the back of people that are highly committed and so in. And I think that's the challenge of family, isn't it? There's at times there's misunderstandings and tensions and so on, and we've got to keep pressing through. Mm. Absolutely. So Meg can sing, actually.
Well, actually, when we came to church, I said to the person leading the team, I said, I'd love to do worship, but they never asked me to, so I didn't.
Where was that at?
At church.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, note taken.
Yeah, definitely.
You know where my email is. I think part of the challenge, I think if we're honest and transparent around it, we're just lacking somebody to take the leadership of that. I think everything requires some good leadership to rally and put different pieces together. Yeah, and it's a challenging area. It's difficult, but there's great potential there. Absolutely. And we're greatly appreciative of the work that's been done, and our capacity has been built greatly over this period in that area. Okay. Other thoughts?
Sorry, just quickly, last thought. Just being on the capacity that you've been talking about, I think if we hadn't of invested as we did pre-COVID, we wouldn't have been able to now come into post-COVID to an extent. It's not post yet, but we wouldn't have been able to reach a greater capacity if we didn't invest prior to COVID. So, so yeah, although it was, some would say a sizable amount, but the investment is great for what.
No, it wasn't that sizable, mate. I think it was under 10 grand. And mate, I've spent hundreds of thousands on equipment for churches, mate. It wasn't much. I mean, it might. Of course, I'm not minimising the fact that 10 grand is not a lot for us and me personally. It's a heck of a lot, but in the big scheme of equipment in that sort of thing, it's minimal.
Yeah. So now, like for example, we now have the capacity to live stream a service from within the building. There's a little minor things that are of research and stuff like that needs to go on, but we're pretty much there. So that capacity is very valuable in this time to be able to broadcast the service to those that may not want to jump at the ideal of coming back into a physical church service straight away. So.
Okay, very good. Next thought. Hey, Tommy G.
Hi.
So we might be able to do some worship Zooming, eh? While we're on Zoom, eh, Thomas?
Potentially. Get it all ridgy-dig or nicely set up. So we'll see how we go.
It's interesting. That's what we always want to be very mindful that we are who we are. We always want to strive for more, of course. We always want to serve with excellence. But I never want to be in a place of, and I don't want us to be in a place of frustration or anxiety because we're not something that we're not.
Yeah.
We do have, and that surfaced very strong in the theme, some great strengths. We've got some challenges, of course, but we always will. There will always be challenges. It's just life. It's not just church life; it's just life. And so we don't want to ignore them, but we don't want to covet what other people have because we don't.
Yeah.
So, Rick, a couple of things just in terms of Linda's comments to unpack and understand more about some of the specifics, such as welcoming. And I think that's really important, and that's part of the dialogue now, is to really listen. And that's what the eldership's really been keen to do, is to listen. And so as we've got into talking about music, then that word invest has been coming up. And I think, we've been saying let's invest in terms of it as a financial investment, maybe with equipment. There's that investment in terms of time to listen to the music team. There's that investment in terms of putting it out there. Who else out there has got some ideas around it? And, so Meg puts up a hand and says, yeah, I can sing. Okay, so I think, a couple of themes coming through for me, just out of the discussions that we've had since your presentation, Rick, would be that to unpack stuff and to really understand and some of the things that are in the SWOT analysis. What does it actually look like, and to get help with that. But also investment. What's the investment mean? And there's that desire in the eldership, in the church, with all of us, I believe, to invest in different ways, financially, time-wise, people-wise, listening-wise. Okay?
Very good.
Ev.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. Any thoughts, Karen Dolly? Are you able to talk? I just wanted to just share. You've observed this. You're relatively new to the church. I'd appreciate just some of your thoughts.
Okay. The thing that I think is one of the comments was made about the eldership, and I thought to myself, well, as somebody who's new to the church, I don't know who the elders are. I know. I think Dave is an elder, but as far as who the other elders are, I'm not aware.
Yep. All right. Did anyone look on our website? Is it on there? But you're right. What we've lacked, and look, it's capacity as well. We talk about administration. There's no one employed to do administration in the church. It'd probably be fair to say I do 85% of it.
Yeah.
Maybe not all of it. And so I ain't doing brochures. I ain't got time to do brochures. And so we haven't been putting things in print, but obviously we need to. We need to put things in print. Absolutely. I'm just trying to just search, but as well, we need to make things available I'm pretty sure that information's all on our website, but I just can't pull it up, actually. I don't know if someone else can. So just to make that clear, Karen, in our next e-news, we'll put all the elders on there with their names and their emails. Okay, so right now on this screen, Dave Zammit, Kevin Berger and Howard Mole are elders, myself and Sue, and Catherine Copping, who works on a Wednesday evening.
Yeah, probably too, I mean, other members of the leadership, other than yourself and Sue and I think Howard.
In terms of formal leadership, that we don't have many layers of leadership. We're just a small church.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's staffed with 2 days' pay.
Yeah.
That's it. There's not big incomes coming to our church. We're very thankful, and particularly in this season, the giving's gone up, which is against the trend of other churches. Most churches are saying to me, denominational leaders, giving's down 10%. That's not our story, which is quite surprising. And as you know, we're never pushing people in that giving, but we need to teach around that as well. But again, that comes back to communication, Karen, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, the other thing, Rick, is the positive and really good thing for coming to church for me is the Christ-centered preaching. The missional part of the church attracts me, but also the Christ-centered preaching attracts me also.
Very good. Yeah, very good. I appreciate that comment. That was a common theme actually that surfaced.
Mm.
I appreciate that. That's awesome. I can't find my website. Anyway, maybe someone else can. Thomas, are you on?
Thomas put it up there.
Did he? Is it on there?
I've got a question for everybody. Was there any shocks? Did anybody get shocked by anything on those lists, or surprised, or
shocked it wasn't on there?
Yeah. Or what they were thinking?
Probably need to look at it again, because for me it was a lot of information to process very fast. So I'd like to sit and look at it and go through it a little bit more. But I actually did jot down a few ideas whilst you were all talking.
Great.
So one of the things was what just flows on from Karen. So I'm trying to look at the names. Was like a get to know you segment. So like how Rick, when we had the 3 speakers every Sunday and you'd ask them 5 questions. I think that's a good idea. Like, what's your favourite chocolate? What's this? What's that? Even if it's only really short, because then I've found since we've been in the isolation COVID, I've got to know people a lot more. And they've obviously got to know me a lot more. So I think that's been very encouraging for me. I've always enjoyed doing the breakout rooms, that one-on-one when we do our Zoom church, but we could incorporate that into prayer points each week. So what I was thinking was if when you go into your breakout room, they're the people that you pray for that week. I don't know how you'd work that into post-COVID, but because I actually do pray quite a lot because I don't sleep very well. I'm not revealing all my gifts. But I've appreciated the prayer because I've needed a lot of it lately. And the one thing that I've really enjoyed since I've been in isolation, been sick, was Catherine and Howie, both in my really down times, little did they know, their phone calls were the things that got me through. Really, Catherine actually said to me, "Oh, I know you, but I don't know you." So we had about an hour and a half long conversation, which to me meant the world to me, because at the moment we're basically, apart from this, people just text me. And the one thing that I love is this face-to-face, because that's the thing I'm missing.
Very good. Very good. I'm just going to put in that link. Thomas put the website there, but I'm going to just paste into that link the exact one that has the eldership on it. Because sometimes I think our website is not the easiest to navigate. And I'm just looking at, I mean, look, I'm just not spending lots of time looking at websites. I've got about 8 websites and I don't look at any of them actually. But it is a little bit out of date actually when I look at it. And so, for example, on the page, it's still got Tonya on there. Well, Tonya finished up and took on full-time work at St. Philip's this year, and she was on administration. And then it's got the eldership. It's got Liz Berger there. Liz is on a sabbatical, and obviously we've been pretty transparent about that. It's been through a difficult time. And so, you know, we've just been as graceful as we can in that journey, knowing that it's not the easiest journey. And so Liz is on a sabbatical and not active in eldership, but the guys that are there. And then there's another guy, Anthony Cummings, who is listed as a director and a trustee. And so what we've practiced over many years now, we actually have someone from outside our church on our board and our trust for our charity. That person right now is Anthony Cummings. He's a chartered accountant, a senior accountant for Life Without Barriers. And he's on our board, not our eldership, but on our board and the trust of our charity. Previous to that, I think it was Sue Irwin was on that for a season as well. And so I feel it's good for us just to have an outside voice and perspective in there. And it kind of helps create other transparencies for us as well. You know, we don't, not that there's risk there, but there's always potential risk, of course. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's good. I mean, we've just got to keep better at communicating and stuff. And hence the reason, if anyone's got any communication skills and capacity in that, then you'll be my best friend. No, it's all good. I mean, no, we work with what we have. I think well, Thomas, I pushed your link and it didn't come up. It didn't come up to the eldership page. I only went to the front page on the website, so I'm not sure. Yeah, it didn't link up properly. I don't know why. I think when you're under pressure and you've got limited resource, you default to what you know and who you know. And sometimes at worst, you do it yourself. That's just the nature of it. And it's fair. It'd be fair to say we're stretched. I'm stretched. We're stretched. We're all stretched. And sometimes you can just default. And so hence the reason sometimes while we're looking for feedback in all that is because sometimes my eyes aren't wide open, and others we you know, we're just kind of keep going with what we have, and there's pressures there, of course. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying how it is. You know, it's like it's just easier for me sometimes to do something. I'd rather not do half of what I'm doing. I was on a Zoom with someone in America today, with a couple of others in Newcastle, learning about a CRM, whatever that is, for the back end of a website.
Oh.
Anyway, when I looked at it, I'm thinking, wow, I'm going to get that for our charity. That is unbelievable. So yeah, but that's why we just need people coming forward, and it's challenging. So we're not a heavily resourced church. We've got a big work in our charity, but in terms of our church, it's not heavily resourced, and I think we are. That's why I love having Tonya on. I tell you, when it comes to the stewardship of finance and where energy goes, it is it is crystal clear. There's no blurred lines. It is squeaky clean. And so whilst we've got a big charity, it would be negligent of us and against the constitution and the purpose of people's giving for us to use that for the local church. In saying that, we as the local church are beneficiaries of the charity. We don't have one building bill. I've been in churches and 60% of their income goes towards their buildings, sustaining loans, maintenance and upkeep. And we don't have a dollar. Well, we may have a few dollars, but it'll be nearly nothing in our budget that goes to property. We don't pay a power bill. We don't pay a water bill.
It's sensational.
And so the testimony in that for us is, it's just one of beauty that our work's not a burden to us; it's a complementary gift to us, and we're living off the provision of the Lord in that and with that.
Yes, very big blessing from the Lord.
Amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't want to drag out all night. It's an hour and a half on Zoom's a long time.